Brief introduction of myself. My name is Casey Dillon, President, CEO of Atlas Excavating. We're a heavy civil contractor in Indiana. We specialize in pipe and dirt. We'll do about 60 million revenue, about 150 employees. So, as we're growing, we're stretching the limits of how much data we can consume. So we've been a foundation customer since it was DOS. So I want to say, early 90s, late 80s. So we're all bought in on foundation. We're an HCSS house from estimating and job cost. And then we layer all this stuff together to make it all work. Go ahead and hit the next slide, please. This analytics platform from Pronovos, this is kind of their dashboard that's going to show us what things we can jump into. Part of my presentation today is to kind of show you guys my favorite reports. This is one of those things when you look at sales for a software and it really says you can be up and running in 48 hours. I can vouch for that. When we said go, we were up and running in less than a day. I mean, we were up and seeing real data very quickly. We're working through building custom dashboards now, so that's definitely something they can offer. And again, I was going to show you my 3 favorite reports, just so I can show you we're seeing value immediately. So the history of how we got here, if you kind of follow this graph from left to right, back in the day, we used to do everything by pen and paper. We put estimates together the old-fashioned way. Then we buy HCSS heavy bid, and we start putting bids together, and we create a lot of data. Well, at some point now we have jobs. So now we buy foundation. At some point we layer on Procore. And so now we have just abundance of data that sometimes we struggle like interpreting it or getting it somewhere. So then we kind of went backwards, and we in our company probably have 1,000 spreadsheets that we maintain all the time just to make sure we can see it in a presentable way where we can digest it for young managers or field guys. It may be perfect coming out to make a WIP or a financial statement, but sometimes it's just a lot of data overload. And so we kind of jumped into this like huge spreadsheet management and shared Google Docs to understand this. And then we come in and we find a program like Pronovos that plugs directly into foundation. It's like a layer over the top, if you will. And it just takes data that's existing and makes it a better presentation and easier way to digest some really big subjects. So again, I want to show you some of my key dashboards. We saw value in right away. This company billing analysis, what I really like about this is, number one, you can see this box in the middle of the screen where there's green, blue, and red. That shows by project manager how many billings we have out there, how many are left to go, and how many are done. So then on the right, I've got this constant feed of all information of what have we built so far this month, what do we have left to build, how many projects, and at any given time, anybody who has access to Procore or to Pronovos can just click on the manager and it'll show all their data. We didn't give you live data here. These are more presentation slides, but then we can see by manager how much they've billed, what jobs are left to go. Are we making money? Are we overbilled or underbilled? And instead of making several different reports out of foundation, which all are accurate, this is the same data. It's just easier to digest because we can see more people at the same time. Bruce, you got a note in there you want to talk about?
Well, I actually really like this dashboard. And Casey, I'm curious, if you don't mind, I'd love to ask you this question in real time. But when you saw this particular dashboard, was there anything that came to mind in terms of the benefits that you saw right away? You talked about time to value, and I think this was maybe one of the first dashboards you saw. So I'm curious what came to mind when.
So we're running about 40 active projects a month, and we're running about 8 managers. So if everybody's got between 3 and 10 jobs, sometimes a job can get lost. And so we, unfortunately, our record shows we missed a couple billings earlier in the year when May and June started happening. We get busy, and this report, we can see it. I mean, this dashboard, we can see, hey, manager A is missing a job, and this is about how much he needs to bill to not be underbilled. So, I mean, it's given them immediate insight of how much do I need to bill on this job to not be underbilled or overbilled, and just give them data that they didn't have to calculate. It's data straight out of foundation.
I love it. All right.
Want to hit the next one?
All right.
This is Casey's term money graph. I don't know that Pronovos takes this, but what I love about this is this. If you look at this graph in the middle, the blue line is the billing, the green line is the cash, and the black line is cost. And, as an owner or as a leader, we try to teach our teams to always overbill, right? Get as much, be aggressive as you can. But what we found is this year, the time lag of getting paid, we may be overbilled on the 30th of the month, but by the time the owner's taking 60 days to pay us, our cash is still behind. So this graph was just such powerful imaging to show the managers we're still negative cash on these jobs because we're not billing enough up front. So then after they can see this graph, now they can start understanding I got to be positive cash flow, not just positive billing. And it just made a huge impact. And probably the first 45 days, we probably increased our cash position by $1 million because we can see the data. It's not just in on an accounts receivable report, mixed in with the WIP and an over under billing report. This is just very visual by job site that our guys can make a huge difference at what they're doing within the month that they're actually working.
And, Casey, I know that you and I had a discussion about this graph before, and what I heard you say is you've spent quite a bit of time educating the team on the importance of this information. And I think you said that a visual graph like this saved you a great deal of time from the education perspective. And we also talked about how this contributes to the WIP. And I love you said WIP is more backwards looking, where something like this is a leading indicator. Anything else when you consider this this particular dashboard, anything else comes to mind around leading indicators and how it impacts the WIP? And if not, it's quite all right. I'm just throwing a question out.
Yeah, that's a good one. I would say, everybody lives and dies on the WIP that is an accounting person. And I think the WIP's 100% accurate the day it's produced. The reality is a week later or 2 weeks later, it's not a great indicator, where using something, it's pulling live data. So, we can get this within the month, not just one day of the month, which is usually, between the 10th and the 20th of the following month of when the WIP's created. So the real-time data makes a difference. Between the billing module and the money graph, my managers know how much they got to bill, know what the average lead time is of getting paid from a customer, and they can start steering this down the direction of getting us in a positive cash situation.
Yeah. I like it. There's a saying or this concept called earned value analysis that's very difficult to do without tools like this. And as a matter of fact, I know that your controller was asking about that. There are two components that goes with that earned value analysis. The first is the cost price index, and the cost performance index, and then the schedule performance index. This is something that I think when I hear you talk about time to value, this is one of the things that comes to mind, because it takes so much time to do that earned value analysis. And this is that cost price index. Do you just another question about this particular dashboard? I know that you are a man that focuses on educating and teaching people how to get better. What other teaching moments did you discover as you started to look at this dashboard, if any at all?
Well, it's really that they can control their own destiny. It's not a matter of me, beating them up, yelling at them. It's a matter of they can see their own destiny. We can show them graphs of what success looks like, and we can show graphs of like, hey, we got an opportunity to get better here. And then they can start saying, okay, if that's winning, I want to do more of that. The concept, everybody wants to win. And if we can show them the tools to what winning looks like, they're going to naturally gravitate to doing it the right way. And so rather than, having a process that we've got to really punish somebody to follow ABC steps, a visualization like this, that's live data, they can just do it on their own. And we're talking kids that I've took years to try to teach this to, still doesn't have a good grasp of it. And you show them the graph like, oh, now I get it. And then also literally 30 days later, they look different. And then you start going, now we're 3 or 4 months into it, you can see the difference, and it's showing up in our cash right now.
I love it. I appreciate that. All right. Shall we go to the next one?
Sure.
All right.
Well, the executive dashboard, anybody that the executive loves to have a dashboard named after them. This one is particularly powerful because I can see our trending revenue on the top left. I can see our retainage, what our current billings are. I mean, it's just kind of a snapshot view of everything. The graph down at the bottom is great because from left to right, it's showing me over billings on the left and under billings on the right. And don't we all find this true? You know, when you're looking at your WIP and you find 40 jobs to manage, you only look at the 2 best ones and the 3 worst ones, and you just try to make the good ones better and the bad ones less worse. And this graph really just helps me focus in of where do I put my time instead of having to look at all 40 reports. I can say, wait, these 3 at the bottom, man, I got to make a difference on those. The trial cash balance is also beneficial. I really like the graph right there in the middle, and it's kind of hard to see where there's an up and down with an average current 6-month average. That's our average collection terms. So I can see when do we really try to make a difference, down just a little bit. Yeah, right there. That graph is amazing because we can see when we put effort into collections, our average collection time goes down. And then all of a sudden, if we get busy doing change orders or bidding jobs or doing something else, that thing sneaks up, 15 days, 20 days. Like, all right, now we can put our eye back on the ball and go say, we can make a difference in some of these numbers, or we can see the trending that our efforts are paying off. And it's just really powerful to see it visually.
Did you, I'm curious, before you started using Pronovos, I know that day sales outstanding was a important key performance indicator for you. But how often did you look at that KPI before Pronovos, and how often do you look at it now?
Well, I would say before, we would have a bi-weekly accounts receivable conversation. Anything under 60 days, you're like, it'll be fine. Anything over 60 days, well, now we attack that. And the reality is we're only managing the exceptions. We're only managing the ones over 60 days. Well, if we collect the good job sooner, that's just as good as collecting an old job sooner. So we could really see the average coming down, where when you're only managing the exceptions over 60 days, it's hard to make a dent in getting anything less than 60 days. So when you can see all the jobs in totality, and you can see the current average, you can really make a difference.
Yeah. I believe when this was first launched, you looked at this and you took a moment and you studied this graph. There is quite a bit of information that is at your fingertips. When we built this, we tried to build it so that we give you the right amount of information. And then if you needed more data, you can click and drill in. When you first saw this and you were consuming the information, was there anything that stood out to you that was an aha moment? And the reason why I'm asking this question is I'm going back to the notion of the fast time to value when you started to use Pronovos. So sometimes those aha moments can be valuable nuggets for you, but was there any of those moments that you experienced?
Well, I mean, just the kind of the order we went through these. So number one, for me, it's important to get the jobs billed. Number two, get it collected. And number three, what's the status of the company? So this level 3 executive is, what's the amount of revenue we're doing per month? Man, if I was to look at this graph, I go, why is this month flat? Well, then I can click on the numbers and very quickly see like, oh, we just don't have billings done yet. It's still early in the month. I can look over at the right and I can see total number of employees. If we're carrying 150 average and all of a sudden it's 125 for last week, well, what happened? So just very quick snapshots make a difference, and I can see where that's at. And it's hard to see on the screen here, but that number of employees breaks down by labor, operator, foreman, carpenter, finisher, and so I can see how many people are working in different pay categories as it's tracked in Foundation, and you just have great insight to what's actually going on without having to call every foreman and talk to every manager to figure out the big picture.
Nice. I like it. Well, shall we go on to the next one?
Sure.
All right.
Ooh, company change orders. This is an amazing one for us. Clearly what we want to do is we all want to make sure we get paid for change orders work. We want to know how much work we're doing, and we want to make sure we make money on the change orders. So this graph very simply can show me by the year, active jobs. There's filters at the top, active, closed. I can pick the year. I can do approved. I can do pending. I can do rejected. And so I can see all this data. And then shortly below that, I can filter it by project manager. I can see how much each manager's done by change orders. And then over on the right, I can see how much profit we're making on change order. Are we doing change orders and losing money, or are we doing change orders to make money? What was amazing to me, and this year, 2022, obviously there's a lot of work in the industry. We made a plan for our resources of how much we could do with our crews. Went out and got all that work because there was so much work last winter out there for everyone. And we kind of said, this is our capacity. We're full. We started turning work away. Well, in the year 2022, I think I just looked the other day, we had 500 change orders in the tune of about $5 million. Well, that's effectively like 2 crews worth of extra change order work that the staff, the equipment, the mechanics, everybody's managing this additional work. And so we're feeling the pain of overloading ourselves on work. And it wasn't that we got too many jobs, it's we underestimated how much change order work we're doing and how much effort that takes. Well, sure enough, I've got 8 managers. When I look at that sheet, the 2 managers that are just struggling all the time have the most amount of change orders of anybody in the company. Well, yeah, I can see their pain. I can really feel, so rather than me looking at a cost complete meeting and saying, hey, you're not getting the job done and putting my foot in their butt, I can look at it and go, man, we need some help here. Like there's some big scope changes and we need to get estimators involved instead of having managers do stuff. But just the insights you can see that we didn't have before, all the data that existed, but in foundation, it's more like a job by job basis. Well, then if you print off 40 jobs, you got to digest it. It just doesn't summarize as clearly as what this report does. And it just made an excellent transition for us to make sure we could focus our efforts on who should be doing what.
Yeah, that is quite a bit of change orders and a significant amount that you generated in change orders. When this is a question that I have for you, and this is more of an educational moment for me and hopefully the audience as well. When you are processing change orders, everyone has a margin that they are trying to capture. They have a target margin. When you're processing change orders, are you religiously focused on what that margin needs to be at for the change orders, or is it just a situational event that happens?
Well, for us, our process, if we follow it, should make the margin we expect. We try to charge people what it costs. We make our fair margin. What the worst thing for us is we did the work and we didn't get paid for it. We don't have a pending out there. We didn't give a notification, so this just really helps us keep track of everything and see the number of change orders and go, wow, that's why our change order log has so much data on it, because we're doing so much more work because the plan changes. The engineers aren't as good. The plans aren't as good. And it just creates a lot of data to track and follow. So if they follow the system, we ought to see the margins. What we can see is we've had a couple owners that are just really stickler about beating us up on change orders, and you can show it up on this graph and go, look, that guy's killing you on the negotiations. You got to start adding 20% so that you can get the right margin out the end. And when you can see it visually, like, oh yeah, I'm not making money on change orders, I got to change something. Well, then all of a sudden we can figure that out.
Yeah, there is a section here that says this is an excellent tool for training. This is us as software developers and data scientists looking at the information and also knowing a little bit about the industry. When we wrote this, it was something that hasn't been confirmed. Do you see this as a true statement? And it's okay if you don't. Hey, I'm transparent, but this is how we see it. I'm curious if this is the same as you as well.
Well, anytime you look back in history, as most accounting programs do, the first thing we all do look is for opportunity to get better. How did we goof it up last time, and how do we get better in the future? So that's just reality. That's how we all look at it. You watch a football game, the coaches watch the film afterwards, say, well, you screwed up, you should have done it this way. Well, we do the same thing as business leaders. So in my mind, how we improve that is we shorten the timetable from the time we did the event to the time we learned the lesson. And the shorter that timetable is, the less likely we are to repeat it. And the more honest and open we are, like you said, we can share it to other people so that they learn the lesson faster as well. And then as an organization, we just get better because we're honest with ourselves of where we goofed up and where we can improve. And training, visualization, these graphs, just like the Foundation HQ stuff. When you can see those graphs, live data coming out of Foundation, And it's not somebody have to export it, put it to a spreadsheet, then make a graph. And it's just live data. I mean, the time to learning is just immediate versus, a couple days by having somebody run some reports for you.
Yeah, I love that, Casey. I always say we're in the business to help you monitor, measure, and improve. And that's well said.
Yeah, good stuff.
Anything else on the company change order?
I don't think so.
All right. All right. Well, let's see. We have about 20 minutes left. This is an interesting one. So Project Data Health was created because we've heard of contractors. They'll see a demo environment like what you're seeing now. You'll see a screenshot, and we have heard probably 30% of the time, oh, we're not ready for a tool like this. Casey, when we were in the sales process, I think that when you saw the information and the demo, it clicked with you right away. But then we also showed you this particular dashboard, and you stand out to me because I think that when you saw this, you saw an area of opportunity. The Project Data Health dashboard, from where we see it, was something that it'll help you effectively use foundation and enter and manage data, identify correct data quality issues, and obviously improve the data quality very quickly. These are the things that we saw, Casey. And again, we are a technology company, but I love to hear if you saw any other benefit related to the Project Data Health and how data is entered and managed in Foundation.
Yeah, I mean, Foundation is a super powerful accounting program. And like any program, there's more than one way to do things. And if you get what you want, hey, you're happy, right? You don't know that it's right or wrong, but you're getting what you want. You're running your business. Everything's fine. When we plug into something like Pronovos that has some different reporting, you can figure out like, ooh, we could do that better because now I would have a better vision of that. The best example I could give you is historically for 30 years, we've tracked every job by the job name. Now, someplace we know who the owner is, and someplace there's a GC and an owner. So we might track the job by who our contracts with or the name of the project. And then what happened is when we go to do these overranging like accounts payable conversations, we didn't see that we had one ultimate owner through 4 different GCs that were paying us at 90 days. So we wake up one day and this GC owes us $4.5 million. And it hadn't dawned on us because we weren't putting the data in the right places in Foundation until we look at Pronovos and go, oh, wow, they're paying at 89 days, 1 day before we file liens. But that's how they run their business. It's a big box building company. They know the game. They're one of the biggest in the country. They know how to manage their cash super effectively. And we ended up with more risk from a collection standpoint than we really wanted to. And when we can see that with the days to pay and how much they're doing in change orders, all of a sudden we've got ourselves in a much riskier situation than we knew. Luckily, we started this program with you guys, I think, in July, and we can start making some changes and getting some collections done. So we are, as we get to the fall now, we're not near as upside down as far as how much cash they have on us if they wanted to apply leverage to us. But yeah, there's just some places. I think like pending change orders, another one came to mind. We track pending change orders in a spreadsheet. Great, there's a spreadsheet for every job. If you have a system like this, and now you can have approved change orders, pending change orders, rejected change orders, and you can see histories and lists by manager, and you can really track stuff. Oh, the value of the data you can see there. And it was just not putting in Foundation. It wasn't Foundation's fault. It's our fault. We just weren't using the system right. But when you can see these reports and go, well, that graph doesn't work because we're not putting it in right. Well, that's on us. And it really helped us level our game up with Foundation usage.
I love it. I love it.
I mean, one of them, I think the quality in hours. Our estimating system tracks hours. We never imported them into Foundation. So we have all these reports by hours. I mean, we changed it immediately. It'll take us a year to cycle through all the jobs. But we had no reporting by how many hours were bid by Costco, how many we actually spent. And so we have all this analysis, and we weren't even putting the input in of tracking the hours. So again, that's on us. That's just that previously there wasn't great reporting to understand why we wanted it. Well, now we have tools like, yeah, we need to see that, and then we can then we can analyze why we're overrunning on cost, because it's a hours-based issue.
You know, I hear the saying all the time, garbage in, garbage out. And it kind of ends at that point. Well, this report will help you basically convert that garbage into meaningful information so that you can get value and insight out of the system. I never quite really felt comfortable with that statement, garbage in, garbage out, because nothing seemed to happen after that point. We just kind of lived with the garbage, but we said we got to do something to help people manage the information. And this is just one component. We have a similar one for the GL account and other modules within Foundation. But I'm glad that you found value in that, Casey.
And I think going in, we felt like we were a little underutilizing the Foundation data. And the more you could see, like, hey, you're doing 7 out of 10 things per category. You're pretty good. Just a little tweak here, a little tweak there, and we're going to be awesome.
Yeah. And let me interject here. To your point on the you're never dealing with the hours coming from your estimating system over to Foundation. No matter what system you're on, this just speaks volumes to continuing education. A lot of people buy a system. Doesn't matter what it is. They buy it and they implement it to replace whatever system they're coming from. And they do the exact same thing that they used to do. Why did you buy this new application? And that's, again, where continuing education comes in. It is invaluable. And then reporting tools like Pronovus offers can point out exactly why you need that continuing education.
That's a great point.
Said. Well said, Brian. Well said. So Pronovus, we've been working with Foundation for a couple of years now, and the integration and partnership has been great for each of us, and also the value that Foundation clients are getting speaks for itself. And I appreciate, Casey, you taking the time to tell your story. We have an offering just for Foundation software users, and basically we have some information about how you can get started if you are not a Pronovus user. Time to value is really important to us, and I see there's a poll here. If you take a moment and fill out the poll, that'd be great. Kevin, I see you're on the line too. Let me introduce you. Kevin is our product manager, and he spends a lot of time with different clients, and he also comes from the industry, so he understands the pain. Kevin, I know that you always looking at new ways that we can improve and help our clients, and so anything in particular that you want to bring up about what we just went over, or any new improvements or features?
I think Casey really said a lot of it. I love listening to Casey talk. It reminds me a lot when I used to work for a contractor. Casey reminded me a lot of the old CEO I used to work for. And it really does highlight that this is not a one-off problem that contractors are facing. I think every contractor out there knows is we create a mountain of data. It's just how do we make sense of it to gather the right insights we need to, because I can't tell you the number of jobs I was personally involved in where you would get to the end of the job, you'd be like, man, we went over budget. And you're like, well, why did that happen? And there was never that kind of feedback loop to learn and get better. And that's really what we're trying to do is kind of, okay, you put all this hard work in to build the jobs, it's let's not have to learn the lessons twice. What are these valuable insights we can get out of it, and make sure we take those insights and apply it to the next job, so we're constantly getting better as we go. So I don't have too much to add, Bruce. I just want to say, Casey, it's always a pleasure to hear you talk about these topics.
Amen. Amen to that. Well, we have about 12 minutes left, and just take a peek here at the questions. Let's see. I see most of the questions got answered. Let's see. Well, did a phenomenal job, guys. I think that I love that saying, Brian, it's the continuing education. I think that's so important. And as I've mentioned many times, we are considered to be a company that educates first and then a technology company next. So that's what we live for. So let's see. Am I missing anything before we wrap this up? Brian, Derek, Casey, or Kevin?
You know, one thing I'd add, that's quite the offer, Bruce, you're offering out there for the free implementation, especially data through the end of the year. So, I mean, I assume if people are on this list, they're interested in this, and I would just encourage you, give them a call, get plugged in. You might have to have your IT people help a little bit to get some firewall stuff done. But I mean, literally, it was awesome how fast we got data and just the training and the figuring out the stuff. I mean, if you're on this call and you're interested, just reach out to them, give it a try. I mean, what do you got to lose here at this point with this great offer he's giving you?
No, I appreciate that. And I see we do have a question. This is for you, Casey. Was there anything on the dashboards you wish was implemented? I guess if there's anything that you don't see, and I know we only showed just a few. I think we have 17 plus dashboards out there, but is there anything that you wish was implemented?
You know, I could, I don't know if the question is specifically for the data we're entering or, you know, future growth. You know, I always want more as a CEO. I want more, I want more, I want more. So, you know, I do have a list of favorite things that I'd like to talk to Bruce about, and we're working through some of those. And I think we're going to make it happen. What I love about working with Bruce and his team is I go, hey, I would love for this to work this way. And they're like, well, why do you want that? And I explain like, oh, that's a great idea. Let's see if we can make that happen. And so it's just this interactive conversation of, hey, what you've given me was better than I ever had before. And it's like the tip of the iceberg. Now I want more. I want expansion. I want more detail. So it just really opened up my eyes to what was out there that I didn't have that before. But there's, you know, the majority of the things that you need to be up and going quickly are already functioning. There's a couple little nuanced things that maybe are just, you know, a problem we're having today because of material management. That's not really a long-term problem. You know, that's a nuance issue. But the big picture items, billings, cash, collections, change orders, you know, all that stuff is up and running right now.
Nice.
Hey, Casey, do you do anything, and I know this doesn't apply to all contractors, but in your industry, you have very measurable quantities. Are you getting any sort of production reporting so you can, you know, you look at the production rate that you're estimating, and now that you're bringing in hours, you know, I know Foundation can calculate. I used to do these reports all the time when I was consulting with clients too. Say, hey, you're supposed to be moving X number of yards of dirt per hour. To date, this crew is moving only this rate, and there's a catch-up value that, hey, you know, I'm glad we caught this early because we still have time to address the problem. I imagine with this type of technology that Pronovus is using, you can do even more. Get it.
Well,
you know,
there's another one of my favorite reports on there that we didn't cover today, and it's the root cause analysis for plus and minuses. I think Bruce has got like 13 different buckets. So as a manager can enter in, hey, we lost money in this item. It's because estimating forgot something. Oh, we lost money in this because the field, yeah, we had to do it twice. And so you just track this on a monthly basis. And then, you know, every quarter, every month, every end of the year, whatever, you can have a report that summarizes where's our problems? How do we focus on getting better? Because if we're not careful, we just end up trying to fix everything and we don't get anything done. Again, so this just provides that insight to the data for us to focus on how do we get better. And there's some great information here that we can dig into.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. Well, you know, I guess what I can do is turn it back over to you, Brian. If no one else has anything, I think that in the world of Zoom, rarely are we able to get some of our time back. So yeah, I'll turn it over to you, Brian.
Yeah,
So a
I have.
question come in on the chat asking if we can share this recording to the attendees. I assume somebody can help with that.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's recorded, will be edited, and will be made available, as I heard from John. So I'm assuming the attendees will probably get an email link. If I'm not mistaken, that's generally how it works. And that's
You know,
it for
my
me.
name and numbers on there too. If you guys want anything specific, feel free to call me. I'll make my controller available if somebody wants to have their controller talk to our controller, and just really figure out the nuances of what it takes to make this thing happen. Feel free to reach out anytime.
It's great. Casey, do you want to throw out your email address? It doesn't look like it's listed here on this final slide.
Yeah, let me see. Yep, I can put it right here.
All right. Excellent.
Perfect. That's great. Yeah, and again, we just appreciate everybody taking the time to join us today. You know, I wasn't thinking much about it earlier on, but you know, since we're kind of talking continuing education, this is a great tool to use as an educator to the staff. I think with Casey's point for sure, you know, a lot of times you get project managers and people just don't have a stake necessarily in the overall company. We all do. Obviously, we need our companies to be successful in order for us to be successful. But to be able to look at your individual projects and see how it is impacting the business directly, that, you know, when you're not getting those billings out on time, when you're upside down on cash flow, yes, maybe the company can float that, no problem. But what happens when times tighten up and maybe we can't? You know, learning how to properly manage these things and get cash in the door, it's critical, and it's a great thing.
Absolutely. I just want to say thank you to everyone, Brian, Derek, Casey. I really appreciate the opportunity to present with you. I think that Project HQ is a phenomenal add-on to Foundation, and yeah, this has been a great opportunity here.
Fantastic, guys. Thanks for having us join you today.
All right. Well, I hope you all have a great week.
You too.
You
All
too.
right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.